Welcome back, everybody. It is that time of week again. Welcome to the worst of the war. So on today's episode, we are going to be taking a look back here in WCW. And what are we talking about? We are talking about the time that Rey Mysterio lost his mask. Make sure, guys, that you like and subscribe here to World Championship Wreckage. We are covering everything from the famous NWA and WCW time frame in professional wrestling, and we are going to start expanding soon with stuff from the WWF, ECW, TNA. More stuff is coming. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and give us all the support you can. We love each and every one of you. So growing up, I was a huge fan of the Cruiserweight division, as most wrestling fans tended to be, because it was different. It was different than what you were seeing in the main event. It was new talent, fast-paced, doing things that we had never seen. Stuff that now you watch on modern-day wrestling, and it's in every match. But growing up, I was such a big WCW and ECW fan that ECW is where I first heard of Rey Mysterio Jr. And not just Rey. I heard about Dean Malenko, saw Eddie Guerrero for the first time. All of the talents that you know that went through ECW before either going to WCW or the WWF. So, when Rey showed up on WCW television, I was stoked because I had seen what he could do. And especially the fact that WCW was just repeating kind of what ECW did, putting him in matches with the likes of Psychosis and Juventud Guerrera, the Dean Malenkos, Chris Jericho, things like that, showcasing him and making him a star from the get-go. I would be remiss if I didn't say, because everybody that I know that is a Rey Mysterio fan, Halloween Havoc, 1997. It is fantastic. It is fantastic. It is probably one of the first matches I will ever show anyone that is not a wrestling fan. Go watch it. It's so crisp. It's so clean. Heel Eddie Guerrero. I mean, if you want more about Heel Eddie Guerrero, check out the World Championship Wreckage episode. Will Gray and myself, we go in depth looking at the storyline between Chavo Guerrero Jr. and Eddie through end of 1997 through 1998. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. So, Rey becomes a megastar in the eyes of the fans. And he's perfect. He's perfect with the bright colors, the different outfits, ones that look like Spider-Man. I mean, it's so easy how he related to kids. Even in his WWE run. As you see, when he would put his head against a kid wearing his mask, or have double masks on and give a mask to a child in the audience and everything, he's so relatable and is such a good use for that audience base. Well, as WCW progressed and everything, we saw matches where it was, hair versus mask, or stipulations where someone would lose a mask. Chris Jericho had a big part of that. Chris Jericho had a part and won a match where Juventud Guerrera lost his mask. There was a stipulation with Chris at one time for Rey, but also with Eddie against Rey to lose the mask. And of course, there were so many times where a mask would get ripped, or someone was trying just to take it off of Rey. It was kind of always just a little bit like always at the forefront in his WCW days. And you hear the stories, in interviews with Rey and, with Eric Bischoff, where Eric Bischoff, at one point really wanted to get that mask off of him, believing that, so much of the storytelling is done by facial expressions and the emotions in the eyes, and he thought that Rey couldn't do that wearing a mask. Thankfully, Rey got to keep that mask for quite a while. That didn't last through the end of his WCW run. One name, Kevin Nash. Love it or hate it, at one point Kevin Nash was in charge of booking with WCW. And people are always on one side of the fence of it. A lot of people think that that was the big reason that WCW started their tailspin down. But at one point, he was booking and he was in charge of match stipulations and outcomes and storylines, and that was part of his job. You hear a lot with the WCW, the inmates running the asylum, and Nash was part of that. So everyone is familiar with the finger poke of doom. Well, after that finger poke of doom, the NWO, and I call them the NWO Light version, was formed. And because of this new NWO faction and everything, they took real offense to the LWO and quickly got rid of them. But Rey Mysterio continued to wear an LWO shirt, which Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, in storyline-wise, took real offense to, and continued to want to take that shirt off. Well, this led all the way up to a tag team match at Super Brawl 1999, a hair versus mask match. And on one side of the ring, the Outsiders, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. On the other side, Rey Mysterio and Konnan. And of course, that match did add layers. Konnan, who was in the original NWO, not in the 3, but as they started to expand, was a big part of the Wolfpack with Kevin Nash. Had grown really into, being a fixture, a big fixture in WCW television. And unfortunately, due to this outcome at Super Brawl, Rey Mysterio and Konnan lost, and Rey had to unmask. I remember, in my childhood and even into my teenage years and everything, we didn't order a lot of pay-per-views. A lot of what I saw would come months later when it was on VHS, and we would rent it. But I remember we ordered this match, or this pay-per-view, I should say. This was the same night where they were crowning new tag team champions. And I really wanted to see the outcome of that tournament because I'm a big tournament guy. And this match just happened to be on the show, the hair versus mask match. And so I remember watching this live as it happened and feeling really uncomfortable, feeling like it was like with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, and I believe Luger was in there just yelling, "Take it off," like talking about his mask and everything. It made me really uncomfortable. And there were some emotions to it too, and the commentators did a very good job of explaining how the importance of the mask in Mexico and the relevancy of Konnan being the one to undo the laces for Rey as they took the mask off. And then the mask slid off. And it was like a superhero taking off their costume. It really was. It was weird. It was strange. It made Rey kind of, to me, feel like, just a normal person, which, I mean, in wrestling, I feel like you have to have some characters that are special and different and on, like, in different categories. Like, realism is amazing in pro wrestling, but you've also got to have those characters, whether they be humorous, whether they be superhero-like, whether they be, look at Bray Wyatt and The Fiend and things like that, things that are a little bit more supernatural, The Undertaker. But it was weird to see Rey without his mask. And his run after wasn't horrible. You got things like with Konnan and the Filthy Animals and things like that. And he still delivered amazing matches and everything. But to me, it always just kind of deflated the rest of his run, in my eyes. Of course, when he returned or debuted, I should say, in WWE, the mask was back. And I'm glad that WWE has kind of, put a curtain over that time. They don't mention it. It's never brought up in a storyline, really. Now, I am one to say that I am not a fan of WWE rewriting history and making sure that they're in the most positive light at all times. But in this case, WWE has done the right thing in making sure that, the time of him losing his mask in WCW has never been covered, never been discussed. And by doing so, they were able in Rey's career to do matches where the mask was on the line or someone was trying to rip it, aka Eddie Guerrero again. I really wonder, and I have really thought that his retirement match, whenever that happens, might be against his son Dominic, and it might be for the mask. But who knows? Who knows? Recently inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, Rey Mysterio has had an amazing career, and it doesn't show any signs of slowing down. But at one point, WCW decided to take off that famous mask. It was just another part in the worst of the war. And thank you guys again for joining us for another episode of the Worst of the War. Make sure you like and subscribe World Championship Wreckage here on YouTube. Find us on other social medias, Twitter at WC Wreckage Pod, TikTok at, I believe, the exact same thing, and search World_Championship_Wreckage on Instagram. Twitter and TikTok is where you can do our weekly polls for our flagship show for what Will Gray and I are going to talk. But we've got lots of good content here on the channel. We've got Pro Wrestling Newbie Reacts, PWN with Mr. B-Roll from Cole TV. Back in the day with XLJ the OG from Cole TV, where he goes in depth with old school WCW merchandise, storylines, feuds, WCW magazines. He covers a lot of ground with his show. We've got Icon, the story and important moments in the career of Sting, covered by Husky Rhodes and the Silverback Nate Slater from Texas All-Star Wrestling. And then we've also got character creative writing with our buddy and producer of World Championship Wreckage, Jay Knows Wrestling. So there's something for everybody. There's new shows coming up soon. I actually just talked to someone last night about a new show coming, and I'm super excited about it because it's something that I had already kind of had lined up and an idea, but didn't have the time to do it, and someone else is going to take that and build it on their own. So I'm very, very excited for what's to come for World Championship Wreckage. And of course, I got to give a big shout out to Dormir that does the music underscoring almost all of our videos. Give them a listen. Their link to find their music is at the very end of this video and most of the videos. Thank you guys for the continued support, and we'll see you next time on another episode of The Worst of the War.